helping with all of the flying operations. Joined today by the Eurofighter family. My colleague here from BAE Systems, Paul Smith, will be talking later on more about the capability of the airplane, for those of you that are more technically minded, and get into some of the capabilities and why we believe Eurofighter will meet all of the Finnish military requirements. We're also joined by Commander Kempchen, the German Defence Attaché, representing our German partner nation, and Group Captain Mark Northover from the UK Ministry of Defence as the UK government representative. We'll also be joined over the course of the weekend by our representatives from the Spanish government and also the Italian government. And together, these four countries form the key European partners of Eurofighter. It is a true family, and we would very much like Finland to join that family. Underpinning that programme industrially is a wide range of European industry capability. Starting with Airbus, our German partners, but also in Spain, Leonardo, our Italian partners, also in the UK with their sensor division, and then into the Eurojet consortium, which builds the fantastic Eurofighter engine, which I'm sure you'll hear lots about. There's one outside, and we have colleagues from Rolls-Royce, Eurojet, and representing the other partners in that consortium to talk to you all about how wonderful the engine is, how reliable, and how much performance it gives to Eurofighter as a weapon system. I think it's important to note that Eurofighter is the European solution. I know other competitors may claim that they are a European solution, but Eurofighter truly is. It's come together from the four nations as we've described. It is manufactured, assembled all across Europe, and it has a supply chain of some 400 or 500 companies all across Europe. So it really is a European product using European technology, and the benefit of that is that we have all of the intellectual property and all of the rights that we are able to share industrially with Finland. I think the other part of that is it brings interoperability, and it brings a programme of scale. In Europe, Eurofighter will remain the backbone of European combat air power out until 2050-2060 period. There are something like 500 Eurofighters already flying within Europe, and with key partners such as Germany already looking at purchasing more Eurofighters in the same timescales as Finland, that number will only grow. And with an aeroplane with a 30-year lifespan, that immediately takes you out to the sort of 2050s, 2060s anyway, the same timescales as Finland. So with Eurofighter, I think Finland can be confident that there is a programme of scale across Europe that gives you the robustness and resilience that you'll be looking for, and also gives you the benefits of interoperability and partnership with the UK Royal Air Force, with the Luftwaffe, with the Spanish Air Force, the Italian Air Force. It gives you a range of access to main operating bases, facilities, and that whole infrastructure across Europe. So really a truly European programme. I think it's important to note also that because it has that scale and magnitude, it is the programme that will bridge into the next 6 generation programmes in Europe. So we're aware that the UK are obviously pursuing a next generation programme. Our colleagues in Germany, France, and now Spain are also pursuing a 6th generation programme that will, our exhibition stand today, there will be key technologies here such as radar, such as helmets. These are the things that will start to be fielded and used operationally on Typhoon that lead in to the successor programmes to what HX may be. And I know that's a long way in the future, but I think it's important to think in that dimension, because when you do, it starts to give Finland a gateway and access into those technology programmes and into whatever follows on from the HX programme. We hope that will be Eurofighter. So why do we think Eurofighter is the best solution for Finland? Well, I think my colleague here, Paul, will talk all about the military capability, but suffice to say, it will meet all of the military requirements that Finland has articulated. Finland's a big country. You've got a lot of ground to cover, and you want an aircraft that flies the highest, flies the fastest, carries a great payload, is reliable, can operate from all of the dispersed strips, forward operating bases can cover the full geographical area of Finland. And that is exactly what Eurofighter brings and exactly what Paul will talk about later. But we think it's a bit more than just the aeroplane. We understand Finland's requirements in terms of security of supply. It's really important that once you have this capability that underpins Finland's main defence capability, that you have the ability to control that nationally. You have an independent ability to operate on your own. You have all of the skills, the expertise, the technologies to be able to do that on an enduring basis. You may be able to operate for a limited period of time by just providing, a huge package of spares when you first buy the aircraft. But that's not true security of supply. True security of supply is transferring technology, capability, learning, all of the things into Finland that will underpin that for the duration of the program, out until 2050, 2060. And that's exactly what we are offering with Eurofighter. We're offering to bring all of those things because we can. We're a European program and we own all of those things. And we're inviting Finland to participate in those through Finnish industry and in a balance with the Finnish Defence Forces to establish those capabilities in country which truly give Finland the ability to independently assemble, maintain and operate the Eurofighter in Finland. We think that's key. I think what that does is it gives Finland control. It gives Finland control over the weapon system, it gives you control over your national military capability, and it gives you control under some of the things that underpin that, such as the data environment around that. We all know that these weapon systems today are information hungry, that the future battle space is shaped more about by what you know and how you act quickly, so information is key. So not only does our proposal bring a great aeroplane that is at the front end of delivering and acting on that information, but it also brings in a lot of the elements that you'll see around the exhibition stand here that enables that networking of data. So all of the data that potentially Eurofighter will collect and share across Finland's defence networks into the Navy, into the Army, into the civil agencies. We want to operate as one collective capability. Our proposal brings lots of other individual technologies which we can show you around the stand here that delivers that kind of capability as well. So I've said it's everything that Finland needs to independently assemble, maintain and operate in Finland. That starts with an option for final assembly of Eurofighter in Finland. We are proposing that as part of our Eurofighter offer, and we think that is key because it will give Finnish industry an in-depth understanding to the aeroplane. If you're putting it together, you really understand how the aeroplane works, and that gives you a good foundation then to have a national capability going forwards to do what you need to do to the aeroplane. When you overlay that with the transfer of capabilities in terms of airworthiness, in terms of design, in terms of access to data, so that you can control the software and elements of the software on the aeroplane, that's a very powerful position to be in. And as I say, it comes immediately back to having true security supply. I've mentioned mission data. It is critical. We define mission data as the ones and noughts, the software that takes all of the information from the battle space, goes into the aeroplane and makes the weapon system work. The quality of the mission data that you put into the aircraft, your ability to be able to change that rapidly in a very rapidly changing threat environment is true sovereign capability. Our intent with the Eurofighter proposal is to give Finland all of those skills at a national level, so you can access the full data on the aeroplane, you can develop your own data against your own threat systems, and you can continuously evolve in the way that you need to counter the threats that you may have. And it's also about training. So obviously we will provide training for Finland to operate the Eurofighter, but it goes further than that. So by integrating Finnish industry into that, we will set up an independent training capability in Finland across the spectrum. So the Finnish Defence Forces will obviously end up training their own pilots with the infrastructure that we put into place. But we will also put infrastructure into place that trains Finnish industry, perhaps to perform more of the MRO type tasks on the aircraft, get closer to the front line and be a truly integrated system that guarantees, again, your security of supply and your ability to do things independently. I think once we put all of those enablers in place, you end up with a solution that will integrate within Finland's existing infrastructure very easily. With Eurofighter, there will be no hidden costs potentially for adaptations to main operating bases or wider infrastructure. We are confident that Eurofighter will slot into Finland and enhance capability without any additional cost. We are also confident that Eurofighter offers the lowest cost of operation through life. It's important to understand how expensive or how cost effective these platforms are to operate across a 30 or 40 year period. That is an essential component of our offer also. So before I hand over to Paul, I think just to orientate around the stand, our exhibition here takes you through that journey. So we start here with total capability around the aircraft. We are able to fly the simulator, experience the performance of Typhoon, see how the weapon system works, and then we move around into how we integrate into Finland's systems, how the technologies we bring will enable that information from Eurofighter and from other sources already in Finland to work and flow seamlessly across the networks, giving you that superiority in the information battle space. As we move around, you'll see some of the virtual technologies and the training equipment and things we are proposing that will enable Finland to operate in the dispersed operations, forward operating bases, and underpin the ability to deliver operational effect from anywhere in the country. And that goes all the way through to the mission planning, and eventually you can have another fly of the Eurofighter system at the other end of that cycle. In between, we have exhibitions here of some of the key elements of the weapon system. So you have our E-scan radar, which Paul will talk about, and then importantly how the whole weapon system comes together, brings all of the data together to give you operational effect and output. And then lastly, on the front here, we have more discussion around our industrial proposals, which is essentially how we bring all of those elements together with Finnish industry, with Finnish Defence Forces to deliver a total capability in Finland. So in summary then, what is Eurofighter? It's a European product. It's a European program with European partners. It will be interoperable with Finland, and we bring a program of scale, certainty, resilience and robustness that will be alive and will continue to grow into the 2050s and 60s. It is also a technology gateway program to the 6th generation, which is important for Finnish industry to maybe participate in as part of our offer. It meets all of the military capability requirements. It is a total capability solution, as we've said, enabling access across all of Finland's C2, C4 networks and bringing the whole thing together. It is everything Finland needs to independently operate, sustain and maintain the weapon system and give you full sovereign freedom of action. I'll hand over to Paul, who'll go into a little more detail about the military capability, and then we'll be able to take some questions at the end before you're able to walk around the stand and have a look. Thank you.
Yes, okay, so my name is Paul Smith, recently retired Royal Air Force fighter pilot. So it's good to see some good friends here who have seen me talk before. Hopefully I have something new to tell you about how we're taking Typhoon forwards. If you don't want the old model, then we have JB here, who's a current Royal Air Force Typhoon fighter pilot, so you can ask him some questions, and obviously the Royal Air Force Typhoons will be arriving hopefully later today if the weather allows. I want to tell you a little bit about the capabilities that we're delivering with Eurofighter and how they're also growing and being enhanced to meet and beat all of the emerging threats in this environment as well as in the environments that we operate. So this is Eurofighter flying over the Baltic alongside some Finnish Hornets. and you have seen in this environment, as we have, an increased operational tempo. And what you see with Eurofighter is proven interoperability, sharing data with Finnish Hornets, or into the maritime and land environments, and proven availability and effectiveness. So right here, right now, delivering combat capability, and I'll take you through how that's going to develop over the coming years. In terms of how we deliver capability on the Eurofighter, then we have what's called a phased enhancement program. And I don't need to go into too much details on there, but if you've heard me talk in the past, you would have heard me talk about currently we're on phase 1, or we're on phase 2. Right now, the Royal Air Force is flying the phase 3 enhancement, which delivers capabilities such as Brimstone, Storm Shadow, Meteor, European long-range air defence missile. So a really effective platform, and that's continuing through the future, and that's what this diagram is trying to show you is as we go forwards, then improving the sensor suite, so introducing into operations the E-scan radar that's in flight test right now in the UK and Germany, continual evolution to match future threats, so improving those sensors, improving the way that data is managed and presented to the pilot with things such as the Striker 2 helmet that you'll be able to look at here on the stand. And then improved weapons, more intelligent weapons, and interoperability. In terms of core enhancements or key factors that will enable us to work in this Finnish operating theatre, then key elements are the new E-scan radar, the ECRS, or European Common Radar System as we call it, giving some great capabilities in terms of electronic attack, suppression of threat systems, as well as allowing you to fight through a contested, congested airspace, fight around the jamming systems that are out there, give a pilot a clear picture of what's going on, both through the power delivered, but across a broad range of the RF spectrum, as well as intelligent and novel waveforms. In addition, there are other survivability enhancements that we are introducing right now. So we're on contract for something called the Smart Dispenser System. So rather than a traditional chaff and flare dispenser, that introduces multiple smart expendables, and I'll talk about that shortly. New weapons, new roles, giving greater capabilities to destroy or suppress enemy air defense systems, really giving Typhoon an ability to shake the battle space, in particular in conjunction with a new weapon called the Spear and an electronic warfare version of the Spear, as well as introducing maritime strike capabilities, and all of that underpinned by the platform and performance. Foxy already talked about the Eurojet, so a fantastic capability, unmatched reliability. From a pilot perspective, what do I love about Eurojet? Just gives me a huge amount of thrust. So no other platform in this competition has a thrust and weight of Typhoon, and really that underpins everything else. If you get the platform, the performance, the engine combination correct, then that's why we have confidence that Eurofighter will be around for the next 40 to 50 years. You enhance the sensors, enhance the weapons, and actually, although they're a great baseline, we're also looking to enhance those engines and deliver even more thrust to the customer, even more reliability. All of that gives you great flexibility. In one platform, you can do all of those 7 missions that are out there in terms of suppression, anti-air, anti-surface, get involved in maritime, coordinate with land, all in one platform through the sensors that give great situational awareness and the human-machine interface with those smart weapons. In terms of how we operate, then I think it's really important that you understand that the European nations that operate Eurofighter face or recognise the same operating environment that you have in Finland. We see that on the Baltic air policing, as well as Royal Air Force operating out of Cyprus over Syria right now. Similar threats on the ground as well as in the air. And in fact, we demonstrate great interoperability with our coalition partners with Finnish Defence in the Baltic. Key, in August of next year, the UK and Germany will deploy on Baltic air policing together, so as a mixed force of Eurofighter, showing how closely we interoperate across the partner nations, how our concept of employment is the same, and how we're able to work very closely together. And that's the sort of partnership that we bring to Finnish Defence, sharing training, sharing doctrine, sharing data and skills to enable you to have a really great deterrent capability. In terms of how we employ the aircraft, then we do consider how we would coordinate with UK and other nations' coalition assets across NATO and across Europe and into the Baltic and Nordic region. But as well as being interoperable, we actually do have the capability to operate as a lone platform with full freedom of manoeuvre and full freedom of access. So we don't rely on other assets. So in terms of a single platform giving Finnish defence a comprehensive capability, then that's what Typhoon delivers. Now that's underpinned by the UK Ministry of Defence. So the UK Combat Air Strategy, which was released last year, is, as it says, an ambitious vision for the future, and it has Eurofighter on the front page, which I think underpins the UK's vision of Eurofighter capabilities. I really want to emphasise two key elements of why I think the Eurofighter's really effective in the Finnish environment. And one's going to talk about survivability, and then what we call AAAD, so anti-access or area denial, contested congested environment, which is clearly what is potentially the situation in Finland. I'm going to talk about capabilities that we deliver right now, as well as what we will deliver in the 2025 and beyond timeframe to meet and beat those emerging threats in this environment, which are the same threats that we in the UK, Germany, Spain, Italy look to match and beat in the future. And I'll bring that through, I'll illustrate that largely through two videos that give you a little snapshot of capabilities. They're unclassified clearly, and the concepts are somewhat simplified, but you'll see the sorts of capabilities that Eurofighter delivers in conjunction with those weapons that allows you to have those capabilities of survivability and reshaping the battle space. So a key part of that, and this is a technology that's in the aircraft right now, is the very high situational awareness that the aircraft delivers to the pilot, both in terms of information in the head-up display, to give you information around mobile or pop-up threats, as well as fixed threats, but also in the helmet. So in a wide field of view display helmet, have really a great ability to uniquely deliver a range of information. And then something we call CCMs, coordinated countermeasures. Again, a unique feature of the Eurofighter that pulls together not just delivering warnings about threats, but giving the pilot cues as to how and where to manoeuvre, and automatically electronic defence aids as well as expendables, all automatically coordinated, making the aircraft extremely survivable. So it's not just one layer of defensive system, not one element that a pilot depends on, but his survivability is built around multiple layers of defence, multiple ways of surviving against a wide variety of threats. I mentioned the coordinated countermeasures, a range of expendables that you can deploy, so really giving you a lot of persistence in the battle space, so you don't only get a few iterations of defensive aids, but a large variety. And a key element is the bright cloud as well, which is this, you'll see in the video, a small expendable active decoy, a small digital jammer that gives great endgame survivability if those earlier layers of defences have been peeled. As well as electronic countermeasures on board, off board in the towed radar decoy, as well as the ability of the radar to do accurate warfare as well. And then not only defences, but the ability to rapidly locate and target threats that are coming at you with their mobile systems, fixed systems, or even man-launched systems. And whether that's using the Brimstone in operation right now, or the Spear in the near term. So you can rapidly target, and you'll see that in the video, that you can precisely locate threats and precisely target them very quickly. You'll see elements that give the pilot awareness of launches. So whether it's a man-launched portable air defense system or a electronic system, then so both in the electro-optical and in the RF environment, the pilot will get awareness of the threats that are out there. Key to that is the Lightning Fly pod, which doesn't just do laser designation, but actually gives you really great high-resolution, full-colour information into the cockpit. And this video now shortly will show you the sorts of threats that we're talking about. So a portable radar-guided system. You'll look at some of the capabilities. So this is the pilot's view through the helmet, getting a rapid indication of the threat. Head down, you get an indication of where the threat is. Immediately the system will start doing some onboard jamming. Towed radar decoy will come out, starting to decoy the threat. Changing threat levels in cockpit and in the audio as well, so the pilot knows the level of threat out there. Is the system targeting me or just seeing me? And as the system goes into a launch mode, then again an increased response from Eurofighter that gives the pilot very high survivability. So very high awareness of the sort of threats that are out there. The system tells you it's going to jam the threat, and it's telling you that onboard systems are effectively jamming, giving the pilot a cue to manoeuvre, as I talked about. So all of these are unique capabilities in the aircraft right now. Making the pilot's workload very easy. He can decide whether to avoid to manoeuvre or not. Indications of the expendable active decoys being deployed. Chaff. This is the Bright Cloud, new expendable active decoy, combat proven off the Tornado and in trials on Typhoon right now. A follow-up manoeuvre to aggress or to manoeuvre away from the threat. All of these sort of capabilities giving you that many-layered defence that really makes Typhoon and Eurofighter very survivable in those sort of theatres. Having avoided the threat, then a key element is being able to rapidly target the threat, whether the automatic target recognition and location for radar emitting threats, or it could be, as you'll see shortly, for purely through electronic means. And weapons such as the Brimstone give you a very precise, very discreet response that we're using to good effect over Syria right now. So that's a radar or an electronic warfare threat. Clearly, there's some very capable and lethal man-launched portable air defence systems that you need to have an awareness of. So this is an indication of the sorts of cockpit warnings that a pilot would get from that. And then a sort of cue through the helmet, so they're looking through the pilot's wide field of view helmet, he gets a very clear cue of where the threat is, so that he can rapidly respond to that threat, whether it's through black flares or conventional flares, decoying the threat. And then because you've got that helmet, that cueing system, you can very rapidly put a Brimstone or another weapon, one of the many different flexible weapons you've got, back downrange to counter that threat. So many layers of defence, many layers of rapidly targeting and meeting portable systems. So that's the survivability element of Typhoon. I want to really now talk about the more kind of strategic threats that you face in the Finnish environment. So again, a simplistic view, but you'll see multiple layers of strategic surface-to-air missile systems and how the Eurofighter will allow you to locate those, to detect and get precise weapons coordinates, and how the Sphere 3 capability, that smart standoff new weapon that you can see outside, gives you the ability to overwhelm and reshape that battle space. So a very exciting capability for us, the Spear weapons in development right now. We've already done initial trials, so the first release from Eurofighter was done in May 2016 in the UK, but the weapon is being continuously evolved, and as well as a strike capability with a multi-effect warhead and very precise target location capability, there's an electronic warfare attack capability that allows you to do stand-in jamming. So both electronic attack capabilities and suppression capabilities on the aircraft, but also you can do stand-in jamming with the Spear. And on Eurofighter you can carry up to 12 Spears as well as 6 air-to-air missiles on one platform. So you're delivering huge weapons mass. And for Finland, I think that's really important in this theatre, that you have a great deterrent capability and ability to deliver great mass, but also a broad range of effects from these multi-use warheads. Other elements that make Typhoon very survivable or effective in this theatre is the way that information will be presented. So we have a current means of displaying surface-to-air missile threat systems in cockpit. In the near future, the intent is to have these sorts of visual indications in the helmet. With Striker 2 being full colour and digital, it gives you a lot of flexibility to show effects of the system, perhaps suppressing the missile engagement zone, which will be indicated by yellow, as well as active threats that remain red. So inside the aircraft and across your formation, across the coalition, you have a clear electronic order of battle, a clear recognised air picture of what the threats are out there and how effective your system is doing. I mentioned the mass already, but you can see here 12 spears on one Typhoon, as well as still 6 air-to-air weapons and a lightning high technology pod. And this is just an indication, as you'll see in the video, of the ability of the radar to do some electronic attack and do some off-axis jamming, and the effect that that will have on some of those strategic weapon systems out there that we model. So this is a scenario showing multiple Eurofighters with a range of different weapons on board, whether that's the Storm Shadow, Spear, Meteor air defense, long-range radar missile. And then the sort of indications that you'll have in cockpit, the way the system detects and locates threats, gives you an indication of that in the cockpit. And against those shorter range threats, how you might use the Spear electronic warfare to do some stand-in jamming. And you'll see that that short-range system has been neutralized by the Spear, so giving you full freedom of maneuver, ability to enter and shake that. And having located that system, you can target it, and if necessary, neutralize it through a multiple axis and overwhelm and saturate the defenses of such systems. So although they can look after themselves to an extent, the ability of Spear EW to jam and a multiple axis attack is going to saturate and allow you to neutralize that, creating a corridor to give you freedom of maneuver against the short range threats, and then start to look at those longer range strategic threats. Against those, then we're going to again use the Spear electronic warfare version to do some standing jamming. They would go off ahead. Whilst that's creating confusion in those integrated defences, then you can launch the Storm Shadow, which gives you a low radar cross-section ability to come in at low level, highly manoeuvrable. Do some off-axis jamming with the radar. Between the radar and the Spear, you're going to neutralise those threats. That gives you a picture both in cockpit and looking through the helmet. The pilot's going to get a view of what's the electronic situation is outside, and then allows you to precisely locate those threats either through novel automatic target recognition techniques or doing very high resolution synthetic aperture radar mapping. And it's worth noting that the Lightning 5 pod, latest iteration, actually has a separate synthetic aperture radar capability as well. So indication of how you might target those. And again, these are multiple layers of defences with multiple layers of ways of looking after themselves. So saturation is going to give you the ability to overwhelm those defences and really effectively reshape that battle space. And that's an indication that you're seeing that combat mass here, as well as an indication of how you might use some of the other weapons in a slightly novel way to create multi-layered effects. So in terms of defensive systems, low-level Storm Shadows, medium-level and high-level weapons coming in across multiple axes, really no way that those complex systems can defend against that. So giving you a very effective capability to reshape the battle space and a very effective deterrent to deter potential adversaries. So those two key threads really now is coming together, really allows you with Eurofighter freedom of maneuver, allows you to precisely locate and recognise future threats, suppress them and saturate and overcome them. And key to that is the Spear EW, as well as the Spear strike weapon, in conjunction with the Meteor and the ASRAM air-to-air missiles. So in the Finnish environment, I think worth reiterating that we feel very confident that Eurofighter has been proven in this theatre, in the Finnish environment in terms of temperature and operating conditions. It will give you an enduring capability because of the technology transfer and the data knowledge and those operating doctrines that we'll share with the Finnish defence. And we're offering a true partnership with Finnish defence and Finnish industry. So showing and demonstrating the capabilities we in the UK and across the Eurofighter nations have developed, working very closely with industry to deliver military capability. And overall, Finland having control of that capability across domain, across every operating environment. So for the future, we can see that the platform is going to give you operational dominance and high lethality against any threat that Finland might face. It's a large program. As Foxy said, over 500 aircraft delivered, with more aircraft coming on and orders expected in the same time frame as Finland's looking to choose an HX-hanke. Yeah, the platform is proven to integrate with land, maritime, and in the cyber environments, as well as we're doing work integrating with future UAVs. And it enables those other force elements. So parts of the stand you'll see today, you'll see how we integrate with joint tactical air controllers in the land environment, how it's integrating into the system of systems through elements such as Wendell and delivering that common operating picture from the Eurofighter into maritime and land environments. And then we invite you to really have a look at the other key technologies such as the Striker 2 helmet. Full colour, digital, wide field of view display, integrated night vision so you don't have to wear night vision goggles. All of these key elements flight tested on Eurofighter already and introducing new capabilities to all of our partners. And really we invite you to take a look at the systems of systems approach that we're introducing here. So it's not just one platform, it's a fantastic platform with very smart weapons, but how that integrates into Finnish defence is absolutely key. So that's pretty much all I've got to tell you here today. I'd like to take some questions before inviting you to go around the stand. So,
Paul, what's your biggest argument for Finland not to choose F-35 versus Typhoon? You know, like UK has opted to actually have the F-35, which has a lot of good characteristics. We cannot buy two, but preferably we probably would. But so, what are your answers for Finland? Why to choose you, Typhoon, not F-35?
Can I just take the second part of your question where UK has bought two fleets. We have Typhoon, Eurofighter fleet. We also have some F-35s. There's a very good reason why we have some F-35s, and that's because we have two aircraft carriers, and we need F-35 to operate from our aircraft carrier. Typhoon, nevertheless, we expect to have 7 squadrons of Typhoon in service for many years to come. Typhoon will therefore remain the backbone of the Royal Air Force's combat air capability. We expect to have 2 squadrons of F-35, 7 squadrons of Typhoon. And for us, the key differentiator, Foxy and Mufti mentioned it when they were speaking, cost of ownership through life, affordability. We know we operate both aircraft types. I won't say any more.
Coming in from a
How about the stealth?
so before we dive down the capability angle and the stealth, I think it's important to look at the bigger picture. So we're confident the Eurofighter will absorb the military requirements and we'll have the low observability debate in a second. But you need to look at the totality of the proposal. So, you know, things that we're offering with Eurofighter we will perhaps not get with other competitor systems. The access to data, the level of industrialization, all of the level of partnership around Europe with European partnerships, the access and invite and opportunity to participate both in the technologies and the programs, the 6th generation programs that will succeed Eurofighter. These are the sort of things that are part and parcel of the Eurofighter proposal that you would not get from some of the other competitors. I'll leave Mufti to talk about
which generation do you operate in that now?
Personally, I don't subscribe to the whole generation debate. It's kind of irrelevant, to be honest. I think lots of people talk about generations to talk about specific technologies, such as low observable. But as Mufti described to you, there are different ways and different philosophies of countering the same threat. You know, low observable is one. You have to ask yourself how robust that will be in the future. We already know that threats, systems are advancing at a pace and can probably counter that low observable technology. And then what are you left with? You need an air vehicle that can carry a lot of payload, a lot of weapons, has the performance to span the full geographical extent of Finland. You need something that has a pure, proper air defence capability, speed, agility, firepower, all of those things come as part of the Eurofighter proposal, and perhaps not with some of the other competitors. I don't know what you want to add.
Yeah, so in terms of what Eurofighter will be offering to Finland, we're offering the latest evolution of the Eurofighter program, and it has continuously evolved. I tried to show that picture at the beginning. So in terms of generation, you could argue that elements of our radar are the latest generation, beyond anything that the other competitors are offering in terms of novel waveforms, power, and reliability, field of view. In terms of the capabilities of the engine, again, unmatched reliability. With both Foxy and I have operated and JB across in the desert as well as in the Nordic region, and that engine keeps delivering capability. So really a broad range of capabilities. You mentioned stealth. Well, stealth is, I often talk about 3 S's: stealth, suppression, and saturation. When you talk about contested, congested environment, how do you maintain confidence in your live chain in terms of survivability? And I tried to talk about some of the capabilities that Eurofighter does. So although we wouldn't claim to be a stealth platform, we definitely have a great ability to suppress. And elements of the electronic warfare effectively enable you to interrupt the kill chain of threats out there. And you'll need to break the kill chain in one place. And what I was talking about in the survivability discussion was trying to bring to light how we've got many layers of defences. So if the enemy threat manages to unpeel one layer of the defence, there's the towed radar decoy. If they get past the towed radar decoy, there's the onboard jamming. Then there's the detection and suppression and electronic attack capability of the radar. Then there's the bright cloud electronic active decoy. So many layers of defences that gives us great confidence. And it's not just industry. In the UK and across our partner nations, we have a range of different scientists. In the UK, we have what we call DSTL, Defence Science Technology Laboratories, and it's 5,000 scientists who work for the Ministry of Defence, and they keep industry honest in terms of marking our homework and assessing to a very high level the capabilities that we deliver to the customer. And they have access to secret data that allows them to understand the threats and understand how effective our counters are. So when we talk about freedom of action and freedom of manoeuvre in this environment, without a stealth platform, we have high confidence in that capability. Another question, sir?
As you know, Finland has invested some serious money in American precision weapons like Jasmine. Can you make those with Europe?
Yeah, so actually, although
has somebody done that?
Yeah, so although we primarily operate European weapons and we primarily operate or we primarily offer European weapons, there's a range of US weapons. So our German colleagues operate a range of American precision guiding bombs already. Jasmine's actually a similar, although albeit slightly shorter range capability to Storm Shadow. So I don't see doctrinally, there's a lot of standardized weapons messages and data buses that operate similar. So conceptually, that should be pretty straightforward for us to do. It's not a new class of weapon for us. It's not new to us to integrate US weapons. So, AMRAAM is on the Hornet, AMRAAM's on the Eurofighter as well, albeit that it's been surpassed by Meita in many ways. But we have experience of integrating US weapons. We interoperate, I'd say, of any of the European platform, it's fair to say Eurofighter is the most closely integrated of US platforms. So when I was on the test and evaluation squadron, we would routinely spend about 6 months of the year over in Nellis doing trials with the US trials elements to make sure that not only are our data links, and everyone says, oh yeah, we've all got link 16, there are layers and layers of those data links, newer protocols, and Eurofighter really keeps up with those to share all those levels of data.
So the answer is yes. If it's a requirement, yes. With European and US weapons, it's not a problem at all.
If I may. So for Finland, we do operate, as you well know, in a situation where these aircraft are needed, we expect that our runways are not in use. So we need to think operating on remote runways. We also need to think of the operational availability. Now, I've talked to you guys within the past few years, and especially large countries, when I ask how many sorties you make a day, I say, hey, we make two sorties a day. And that's not an option for Finland. We need to think how many sorties you really maximize within 24 hours. So what's your answer for it? How many hours you can fly out of 48 hours based on your German, UK, Spain experience?
Yeah, so I'll do a quick one on turnaround, and then I'll bring in Harold, because Harold has some good data on this from the look like. So you can do an operational turnaround on the Eurofighter in about 30 minutes. The aircraft's extremely high availability. Harold will give us some numbers in a minute. In terms of remote operating bases, one of the key elements of this aircraft is, and we do take it places with no prepared infrastructure, literally a small piece of tarmac. You can get airborne routinely, and both, obviously JB and I have all got airborne in about 300 meters, so you can get airborne in a very short space, and you can operate with minimal infrastructure. I took 4 Typhoons quite early on in the Eurofighter story. I took 4 to Holland. We operated for a week with 4 maintenance staff in support of the 4 pilots and the 4 aircraft. And that's not routine, and that's not doing combat turnarounds, because you need a few more armament technicians. But it gives you an idea of how you can, if you really want to stress, operate with minimal support. So you don't need to spend billions of dollars to put new infrastructure into Finland to support Eurofighter. Eurofighter will arrive and fly. Do you want to talk about the Baltic Air Policing?
Well, to get some numbers, we had last year, starting in August until April this year, the German Air Force was taking responsibility for the air policy audit. In these 8 months, we had temperatures of minus 25 degrees in Emory, and we had a clear standard of 97%. If you're looking 2 years back, when we had this situation that we had 2 Russian planes coming close to the Finnish border as well, and we had some night alpha scrambles over the Baltic Sea. We had in one night 9 alpha scrambles with 2 Eurofighters. So we start 9 times with the Eurofighters we had placed there. So if you look in the night, we start every 1.5 hours, going airborne, checking the situation, landing, and 30 minutes later on the same airplanes were going airborne again. So these are some numbers which are proved and which we've shown up how flexible and how stabilized the airplane is.
So out of 48 hours, how many hours can be up in the air?
Well, it kind of depends, but I think you can say that Eurofighter will deliver you higher tempo availability.
Well, I think
Due to the fact that we have certificate in the last 8 months the Eurofighter for air refueling with the A400M as well. So the extension is really like the situation shows it up.
I think to put it into
It's not a problem of the airplane, it might be a problem of the human resource, which is sitting in there and getting tired.
Sure.
So I think to put it into context, I mean, Harold has mentioned their experience of Baltic Air Policing of 97% availability on operations, the number of missions in one particular night. I think from a UK Royal Air Force perspective, there's a similar level of availability on combat operations demonstrated globally. We're in the excess 90%. So if you put that in the Finnish context, kind of saying, well, if you want them to be available and you want to fly them, then 90% of your 64 aeroplanes should, in excess of that, should be available whenever to fly. Which is obviously a significant.
Yeah. So a point to support that and put into context, perhaps. Obviously, in order to maintain very high availability rates and operational mission achievement rates, you need your aircraft to be serviceable and resilient, robust in terms of its damage tolerance. Let me give you an example on engines. So we had the Tornado aircraft in the Royal Air Force up until 3 months ago, and many years, decades of experience of operating the Tornado aircraft and improving its reliability. Of course, it was an aircraft which was designed in the 1970s and came into service in the Royal Air Force in the very early 1980s and was in service for more than 30 years. At the end of the life of the Tornado with Royal Air Force, in Royal Air Force operations, the average time between failure of the engine, the RB199 engine on the Tornado, was around about 250 flying hours. So around about 250 flying hours installed on the aircraft before we had to remove it for a problem, reliability problem, or maybe a foreign object damage issue, fault tolerance of the engine. The Eurofighter Typhoon, on average, we have now engines installed before removal for 1,300 flying hours, 5 times as reliable as the Tornado engine. That's the EJ200 Eurojet engine. Superb engine. Mufti and Foxy talked about the performance, the ability for the aircraft to get higher and faster than anything in this competition. Well, it's also an incredibly reliable and FOD-tolerant aircraft engine as well.
So I guess an indication of the RAF's confidence in that is when we moved our second main operating base for the Eurofighter from Lucas to Lossiemouth, they didn't put an engine bay there because the experience was that you just didn't need an engine bay on every main operating base anymore. So it completely changes your mindset in terms of your logistical footprint, whether you need to provision spares, whether you need a lot of you just don't need the maintenance support that you used to have with with other aircraft in the competition or older aircraft. It's completely changed the support model.
Just one further final consideration on that point, and then we've got time for one more question. But it's not just about the aeroplane and availability, as Mark has said. It's the total system. So you need the aeroplane to be reliable, but you also need the data. You also need the networks and the ability to get everything where it's needed to a dispersed base to operate in those conditions. And with the Eurofighter solution, you can easily do that. All of these things will demonstrate to you how you can get the maintenance data to the right place. You can keep sustaining operations wherever you are in the country. And that is probably not the same for all competitors in this competition. I think we've got time for one further question.
Could you say something more your Royal Air Force's experiences when it comes to the cost of operation of the F-35, which is a pretty new aircraft compared to the...
So I will choose my words carefully because, as you say, the UK MOD, who I represent, operates both aircraft. I'm here today very much supporting the Eurofighter Typhoon team. What I can tell you is that we have many years now of experience of operating the Eurofighter in service. We have a couple of years of experience of operating the F-35B for our aircraft carriers. So we understand the cost of ownership of both platforms. One is much more mature and better understood. So we know that the cost of ownership of Typhoon is affordable. It's coming down quickly from the costs that we experienced at the beginning of Typhoon in service 10 years ago with the Royal Air Force. We know that our other fast jet aircraft type, our other combat aircraft type, is a lot more expensive to operate. It's at the beginning of its maturity lifespan.
Like wiser 3 times.
A lot more.
But you certainly got expectations of the F-35 being cheap to operate in the future.
We hope it will. We will be, otherwise we have some problems.
So and when the Typhoon is as mature as the Typhoon is
Yes,
today,
of course. We would expect the cost of ownership to improve. It will need to.
I guess one of the key differences, as Foxy highlighted at the beginning, is everything in Typhoon, everything in Eurofighter, you can control it because those elements are European elements are here, close to you. You have control of that logistics chain. That's not what we have on the F-35.
Well, we can take that one offline if there's one more
Yeah,
question.
I think we're out of time now for questions, but Foxy and the gang are around for the next half hour.